Leaked files from billionaire globalist George Soros' Open Society Foundation 2 days ago have exposed several startling machinations about the organization, including flagrant schemes to manipulate the media, influence international immigration policy, and cash designated for social justice initiatives. Soros has been outed previously for pulling political strings in Ukraine, but as one memo revealed in the massive cliques cash shows, the globalist also sought direct manipulation of Western media to align with that political agenda. Titled The Ukraine Media Project, the memo's authors admit that this isn't proper independent journalism and we may damage our credibility with journalists, but that journalists may produce stories that have no relevance for the narrative we seek to inform or stories that are counterproductive, enforcing narratives of fascism, etc. In other words, Soros and his OSF acknowledged their designs in Ukraine could be conflated with fascism and thus, as they wrote, sought to alleviate potential backlash or opposition by offering elect journalists from 5 target countries: Germany, France, Spain, Italy, Greece, and offer them long-stay reporting trips in Ukraine. Once finagled into the trip, the memo's authors decided, rather than dictating content directly, they would retain a veto on stories we think are counterproductive. Tellingly listed under the memo's pros section is the fact the scheme is a similar approach to what we have done for other press trips, and that the Ukraine trip would provide an opportunity to build relationships with journalists and news outlets. Judging by the degree of influence Soros sought, those relationships wouldn't amount to just a drink after a hard day's work. In fact, under the cons portion, the authors lament specifically the potential for the trip to enforce the narrative of GS/OSF manipulation, because that's exactly what it would be. Another portion of the Soros leaks concerns Europe's immigration crisis, which OSF argues should just be accepted as the new normal. On May 12, OSF Program Officer Anna Crowley and Program Specialist Kaden Rosen co-wrote a memo titled Migration Governance and Enforcement Portfolio Review, focusing on the OSF's International Migration Initiative created to influence world immigration policy, as the Daily Caller first reported. The outlet reports, the 9-page review makes 3 key points. OSF, which doles out millions to left-wing causes, has been successful at influencing global immigration policy. Europe's refugee crisis presents new opportunities for the organization to influence global immigration policy. And the refugee crisis is the new normal. Crowley and Rosen write that the review seeks to consider the effectiveness of the approaches we have used to achieve change at the international level. Anyone unaware how far Soros' fingers stretch into global policy making should consider the section of the review highlighted by the Daily Caller, titled Our Work, which describes how OSF has worked with leaders in the field to shape migration policymaking and influence regional and global processes affecting the way global migration is governed and enforced. The authors continue, our premise for engaging in work related to governance was that, in addition to mitigating the negative effects of enforcement, we should also be supporting actors in the field proactively seeking to change the policies, rules, and regulations that govern migration. We also believe that advances at the regional or national levels could create impetus for policy change or implementation of existing norms at the national level. We deliberately avoided the term global governance because there is no single system at the global level for managing migration. Further, IMI has had to be selective and opportunistic, particularly at the global level, in supporting leaders in the field to push thinking on migration and better coordinate advocacy and reform efforts. We have supported initiatives, organizations, and networks whose work ties directly to our aims in the corridors. Zero Hedge reported on a third aspect of the leak in the memo concerning the United States, indicating potential funding of the Black Lives Matter movement by Soros, though the connection appears hazy at best. Providing $196,000 in funding for the Baltimore Education Research Consortium, a joint project of the city's public schools and Johns Hopkins and Morgan State Universities, one memo states, to support the American Journalism Review series of articles on the crisis in American journalism with a focus on Among other things, coverage of federal agencies and state governments, including Maryland/$200,000/ Strategic Opportunities Fund/2009. A second part of that memo states, throughout its 15-year history, U.S. programs has complemented its national work with state and local grant-making. The Emma Lazarus Fund, the Southern Initiative, the Program on Reproductive Health and Rights, and the Youth Initiative all had a strong presence in states like Louisiana, North Carolina, Texas, New York, and California. In this way, U.S. programs has not only advanced core priority issues at the national level, but it has also worked to enable local and state actors to play a more critical role in shaping discussions around criminal justice, drug policy, immigrants' rights, government security, and other key issues at the state level. Obviously, given the enormous size of the document cache published by Cliques, an untold number of other Soros manipulations will likely be revealed in the weeks to come. Read more at http://thefreethoughtproject.com/soros-hug-global-influence/#LLJZ6NKTCFGQWZ4R.99